I was playing someone recently who advised me that I should play for the enjoyment of playing the moves and the calculation of the moves. Don't worry about the result. And that kind of got me thinking, is that how I play? Do I really just play for the beauty of the game, or do I play more for winning? And the answer to that is that I play to win. I will try to weasel my way into an undeserved win if I have to. I can't help it. I'm kind of like a scrappy Fox player type Go player who just tries to do everything they can to try to win the game, even though it may sometimes be a little bit embarrassing. It may be kind of a reach for me to try something here or there, but it's just my nature, I think. Or maybe I should try to work on that and really think about seeing how I can go into each game thinking about how to just enjoy the beauty of the moves of the game. I was playing a different game where someone kind of made some comments thinking that I was being a little too aggressive, and I'll admit I played way too long on the game before resigning, and I got my just desserts for that because as karma, someone else played me who got killed really badly by me again and again and again, and they just refused to stop playing. So it goes both ways, but I'm kind of hard to convince in terms of playing for just the beauty. Not that I don't want to, but in actuality, when I actually apply myself in a game, it's just hard for me to get rid of that winning, killing instinct. Welcome to Start Point, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. Let's take a deep dive into why Go isn't more popular. Go is a game that we all love and we all think should be more popular, I think. But it's not very popular. It's so unpopular that you can't really bring it up and expect people to know about it, right? It's a common issue. It's a common point of discussion in the Go community. Let's take a look at how popular or unpopular Go really is, and the way I'm measuring it is by Reddit subscribers. So, if you compare it to chess, chess has over 1 million. At the time that I wrote this down, there was 1,186,370 subscribers on our chess. I'm sure it's grown by now. CSGO. Our CSGO. CSGO, if you don't know, it's Counter-Strike Go. It's kind of an outdated name at this point because it's moved on to CS2, but it is a first-person shooter game, very, very popular. But it's about half the popularity of chess in terms of Reddit subscribers. 597,089 was the total that I had when I jotted these numbers down. And then we have our Baduk, which, when I wrote this down, had 42,984 readers. It is growing, don't get me wrong, but 42,000 for Go, for the subreddit for Go, compared to 1 million for chess, that's not like Pepsi and Cola type of rivalry. That's like Coca-Cola versus your like friend who makes soda as a hobby type of comparison. 40,000 is nothing compared to 1 million. Of course, we also can add in our Go game, where, you know, some lost Redditors kind of sneak into when they don't know about our Baduk, which is the far more popular Reddit or subreddit. Our Go game has about 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers, and then here's some good news. We are well above our checkers. Our checkers, they only got they don't even have 2,000. So, I mean, we got them beat. And we also got our Othello and our Gomoku beat. Our Othello only has 600. It's so weird. They only have 600 people subscribed to that subreddit. And yet I feel like if you go and mention Othello to people, most of them know what you're talking about Whereas if you mention Go, it's far more unlikely. So there's some weird thing going on. Obviously, I mean, Go is a much more captivating game, which is maybe why we have such a large following, even though less people in the mainstream know about it. The people who do know about it are very passionate and they do spread the game, versus Othello maybe is more of a casual thing. So why is Go not as popular as maybe we think it should be? Because, well, one of the selling points of Go is that it's so simple, right? It's far simpler than chess. Well, I'm here to say that it's not really. And I think a lot of people have said this as well. They don't agree that Go is so simple. The way I think about it is that Go, yes, the rules of Go are relatively simple and all the complexity emerges from it. But it's simple like it's not simple like addition and subtraction is simple. It's simple like the laws of physics are simple. Do you understand the laws of physics? Maybe you understand some general things about physics, but physics is incredibly difficult to study and understand. And yet, no one's disputing that the laws of physics are in nature simple. If you want to compare it to something else, I would say maybe chess is something like being a car mechanic, where you have all these complicated parts and pieces, right? You have to know what every piece of the car does. You got to know what an alternator is, what the battery's for, what the engine does, and what the exhaust does, and all that stuff. And they all work together, and you have to kind of study what parts do what and how they kind of go together. Very difficult stuff, and it will take a while to learn. But if you compare it to theoretical physics, maybe it's easy to learn Newton's laws of thermodynamics. But after that, to really understand all the implications of physics, I mean, even the sky is not the limit for something like that. So I would compare it to something like that where, yes, on the surface, when you describe it, it is simple, quote unquote, but it's really not that simple. And that can be kind of intimidating. It can be a big roadblock for people who are trying to learn the game, who even, have a first look at the game. It's like asking somebody to, okay, here, let me just teach you the laws of physics. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch. I like to stretch my analogies. But a lot of the reason I think that Go is not so popular is because it's so difficult. One thing that is very difficult about Go is the concept of life and death. So the rules, the capture rules, taking away liberties and things like that, pretty simple. But those quickly emerge into rules of life and death, rules about eyes. It's not so simple. What exactly is an eye? You can kind of try to define it, but it's not that easy. What's a false eye? Like why is one eye not false and one eye false? You can really get technical and really define it. It's very logical in that way, but not to a beginner. Like if you try to give a super logical definition of a false eye, I don't think it's gonna click in their head. I think we all learned about false eyes through experience and looking at what happens on the board. And not only that, eyes are not just one space things. They're a lot of the time it's just like an abstraction. So you have this large space of territory and you just consider that to be alive because you know there are two eyes in there. And that's very confusing, right? Because you don't see two eyes, you just see a whole bunch of space. And then you see some less space and you say that one's dead because there's not enough space for two eyes. So you have to figure out a lot of things. You don't know what a vital point is. And once you understand why you need two eyes, you can kind of get it. But I think it's a very big hurdle in the beginning to understand the concept of life and death, which is an essential understanding you need if you want to actually play a full game of Go. Not only that, the feedback loop in Go is a lot more difficult than in other games. it's difficult to understand what is good and what is bad in Go. When I make a move in Go and it's a bad move, I may not understand why that's a bad move until 20 moves later, until after the game, or never in my whole life. I will never understand why I played a bad move or the fact that I did play a bad move. In a game like chess or pretty much any other game, you kind of know what your mistake is as soon as you make your mistake. If you're playing a game of Mario, you jump too early, you hit a Koopa and you die. If you're playing soccer, you kick the ball off to the right, it goes way too wide, and then you don't score. Of course, there's more nuance to things like that, right? You have to, scale it back and understand your technique and understand why it went that direction, but you immediately know you did something wrong. You have something you can work on. You can play a whole game in the opening atrociously in Go, and you will never know that you played so badly, because later on you'll maybe lose giant groups and you'll be like, oh no, I could have saved that group somehow probably. Let me figure out how to save it. When in fact, the thing that created that giant group was some key lack of understanding in opening principles. Go is also maybe not so popular because it's intimidating. When you look at the regular Go board size, the 19 by 19, it feels like the vast expanse of space. It's hard for me to relate to beginners who look at the board and get very scared to, play a stone, because I've played many games and I have experience and I know what normal moves are. And I honestly, maybe a way for me to understand people who are scared of the board, I can just not play the normal moves. I can try to play the black hole opening or some like Tengen type opening. That's incredibly scary to me. Like I know that it's not the worst thing ever, but if I go away from my 3/4s or my star point openings, then it starts to be like, oh, whoa, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. And maybe that's a way I can relate to them. But there are so many moves that you can play. The first move, it's already a choice within 361. Well, I guess you divide that by 4 if you really want to get technical about the symmetry, but in any case, it looks like 361 at the very least. If you look at chess, you only have 20 options. And some people, 20 options is too many already, and that's why they don't play chess. So if they don't play a game where 20 moves are possible in the opening, then how much more likely are they going to be playing a game with 361 options? I think just the fact that we have so many options is what makes it so intimidating, and the fact that you don't understand what normal is what makes it so intimidating. Another reason I think people find Go hard to grasp is the concept of territory. This is something that comes up nearly every day on Arbhaduk. Maybe not as often now. Maybe every every few days. People don't know what constitutes sealed territory. This is I don't know. It's hard to solve this issue. You need an experienced player to kind of explain to you and show you, hey, this is not a complete game because you have openings in this territory. One way I've tried to explain it is, imagine you have a little hamster on the Go board, and the hamster, you plop it down onto any empty space, and you let the hamster walk around and try to escape. If it can escape and touch another color stone, then you haven't finished the game. You need to seal that off. So if you put the hamster down and the only colored stones that it can touch are the ones that within the territory color that you put it into, then that is considered a sealed territory. Of course, you're going to have to understand dead stones, because if you have dead stones, that's going to confuse you. See, this is why Go is so hard to explain and so complicated and hard to understand. And even more difficult still is the concept of influence. Honestly, I still don't understand influence. I know influence is good, and I feel influence, and I feel that it's good, and I like it. But it's hard for me to really explain why it's good and what I'm going to use it for. This is something I'm still struggling to understand. Influence is such a weird thing that like just doesn't exist anywhere. There's no concept of influence in other games. Maybe if you abstract it, right? If you really abstract this concept, there are games where you can cash out and take points, or you can invest. And that's kind of like a similar dichotomy for territory and influence. But influence is a very unique concept that you can only really get in Go. And it's so esoteric that I think it just puts question. It's just like, it's not even on people's radars when they start playing the game. And you have to really get into it before you start understanding what this influence word means. Again, I'm still trying to understand it. I've learned a lot about it. Honestly, when I was starting out as a Go player, I actually was an influence favored player. I hated getting sealed in. I loved having access to the center. And of course, it was very floaty, and I played too many moves in the center. But this is still probably the kind of player I am, and I don't know why. Why do I like the influence so much? Why do I value it so much when I don't even know exactly how it works? It's very strange. Another interesting reason that I thought about why Go isn't more popular. This is an interesting reason because it talks about the because I'm trying to describe people who are suited for Go, who Go would be a good fit for them, but never find the game. Because people who might be suited for Go maybe wouldn't search for a game like Go, maybe wouldn't be interested to even consider a game like Go. Let me try to elaborate here. Go is a very feeling and intuition-based game, right? You would all agree? Like there's a hefty amount of logical stuff in it, and there's a hefty amount of concrete reasoning involved. But much of the game is feeling and intuition-based. We kind of learn in our bodies what good moves and bad moves are, and that's how we get better at Go, generally. So someone who is more inclined to feel like an intuitive type, a feeling-based type, why would someone like that look for abstract strategy board games? Right? This kind of person would be not interested in a game like chess. And maybe these people who have more intuitive tendencies and feel more comfortable with loose ends and not knowing answers, these people may be not the type of people to look for puzzles where there are answers and solid reasoning involved. And so maybe I'm just, proposing this idea that maybe there are a lot of people out there who would actually enjoy Go quite a bit, but it just seems like a game that they wouldn't enjoy. I actually personally consider myself this very logical and yet very emotional person. I feel like I'm not... it's always been both for me. I felt like I was good at logic, but I was always more interested in the emotional arts and things like that, right? So I was acing my math class, but I enjoyed my art class more, kind of thing. And maybe that's one reason why I love Go so much, because it really asks of each person to use the best of their ability in both fields. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of people don't gel with it. Maybe some people are too intuitive. They don't have any logical capacity. They don't like, getting to the nitty gritty of reading and things like that. So they pass up a game like Go. Other people, maybe they love the, deterministic type of puzzle figuring out stuff. And then they try Go and they realize how open-ended it is. And they don't like the feeling of being put in the middle of nowhere. It feels like drowning in the middle of the ocean. And that's why they don't like Go. And so it takes kind of maybe a special kind of character to be drawn to the game of Go. And now some practical reasons why Go may not be so popular. So one of them being that Go equipment itself, it's hard to come by. It's expensive. You don't really see it in stores. You see one Go board in every like obscure board game store. And I'm wondering why they even have it in stock. Like, who's buying this thing? Like, I don't know. For example, if you go on Amazon, if you look for a cheap Go set, you can get maybe a $20 one for a magnetic set with like tiny little magnetic stones. If you want a decent normal set, you're going to have to pay like $40 at least, American, of course. Whereas if you look for a chess set, you can grab a low-end chess set for like $12. Not only that, I'm sure someone in your family has a chess set. Someone out there, you know, you could go to a yard sale and probably pick one up for $2. Go equipment, not so much, not in the West. And of course, yeah, this whole episode, I'm talking about mostly why Go isn't more popular in the West, although some of the reasons may find themselves in the East. Another reason, maybe a lack of content, and this is not really something I can ask of the Go community because it's small in the first place. So you can't say that there's not enough content. I think there's probably a very high content creator to consumer ratio in the Go community compared to others. But it's just that the community itself is not as large. But on the grand scale, there's no Queen's Gambit for Go, right? There's no PogChamps for Go. I would love to see a PogChamps though. That would be crazy. I mean, the thing is to get all these DDKs to play together and have all their camera reactions set up. I think it's just kind of defeats the purpose if you just kind of have commentary and they're silent. You know, I think the fun of PogChamps was that you could see them think out loud and talking to their viewers and things like that. And honestly, there's not enough Go scandals. Not that I think scandals are a good thing, but you know, people love their gossip. They love their dramas, their drama. And Go is relatively quiet. Back then there was some cheating stuff going on, but it was not even as dramatic as the chess world's version of the cheating scandals. And finally, the last set of reasons I'm going to go over for why Go maybe not as popular in the West comes down to history. East Asian culture has a deep reverence for the game rooted in history. It's thousands of years old. The upper class nobles of the societies played Go, and it was seen as a high art. It was seen as one of the four arts of the Chinese scholar. And even if people don't know how to play Go, even if they don't really play, in the East, they will look at that game and say, hey, that's a game that smart people play. That's a very difficult game. It's a respectable game. And there's none of that in the US. There's none of that in, you know, the Western world where people can just kind of look at it and they'll look at it more in a quizzical way and they'll say, what is that? I think I've seen that before. Isn't that Chinese game or something? For a little brief history on Go's expansion to the West, I think my basic research says that it reached the 16th century. It reached Europe in the 16th century and the US in the 19th century. So that's very late compared to when the East had it, but it seems like enough time for it to blossom and become popular. But I guess it's just been overshadowed by many more interests. It's not like we're back in the day a few thousand years ago where there's no YouTube, no Netflix, no movies to go to, no Disneyland, and you know, you pick up a couple stones and you're like, this is the most interesting thing I've ever seen. No, there's a lot of distractions. There's video games, there's Tinder, there's all this stuff that you can do, and maybe the timing just wasn't right. But I still have hope that Go will become popular, even though, and despite all these reasons that kind of make it difficult for it to become popular. And that's partly why I'm doing this podcast, because I want to make Go more popular, although I'm kind of preaching to the choir. I assume that all the people listening right now are established Go players, but maybe I can influence all of you to go out there and spread the word a little more. So what kind of person plays Go? I think all kinds of people play Go. Or maybe there's no particular kind of person that plays Go. We don't really know. I don't think there's a established cultural image of a Go player in the West like there is for something like chess. And it's partly nice that Go is actually quite a niche thing. There is something nice about the small community of Go. There's something nice about it being an obscure interest and a unique interest. Although we would all, I'm sure, want it to be more popular so we have more people to play with. But there are nice things about it being a quiet, small community as well. So I'm not discounting that either. And now it's time for the DDK Advice Corner. And the tip of the day is to try the double Hane. Now, I used to be scared of the double Hane. It just seemed like a very weakness-filled move. But let me go over what a double Hane is. I'm sure you guys know what a Hane is. It's when you wrap your stone around another stone. And then oftentimes the move after that will follow that Hane. And you may think, okay, now it's time for me to fix my weakness or extend or something like that. But evaluate your position and try Haneing one more time. Don't be scared. It's a good, aggressive move. Just make sure you read and check the Ataris and see what kind of disasters they may lead to. If there are no disasters, you're fairly strong in the area. A double Hane is a very good move, oftentimes the right move. So consider it, try it out, and don't blame me if you lose your game because of it. And now it's time for some Go news. Congratulations to Bill Lin, the newest North American pro. He defeated Sen Jian to become the newest pro in a 2-0 sweep. Bill Lin only dropped one game against Guan Yusong and finished 9-1, a record of 9-1, collecting $2,500 as his prize in addition to his professional certification. Sen Jian valiantly fought as a runner-up, won $1,500 US. To read some quotes from Lin as a post-match interview, he said, "I think I had a better mindset than I did 10 years ago at the second pro qualifier." He was 17 years old back then, and I guess he wanted it more and was stressed, and that kind of affected his game. And he says this time he had a calmer mindset, and he said that he also got engaged this year, so he feels that he's in a very stable stage of his life, and that it helped him kind of calm his nerves and be more of a stable player. So that's good news for me. I also got engaged this year, so I think maybe I should have become tried out for the pro qualifiers. Of course, I am completely joking because I am no good at Go. And another quote, he said, "I realized that the key for me to improve my game was actually the middle to end game, how to come back and how to maintain my lead. Because when you get to that stage of the game, there are a lot of places that are not fully settled down yet, and that's when there are a lot of choices. AI helped me improve on calculated how many points this move is worth and judging how the game is going. Am I leading or am I losing? And then I'll play based off of that information, looking for the highest win rate." So sometimes when pros talk about, I can talk about him as he's a pro. Sometimes pros and higher level players, of course, talk about Go in a way that makes me not want to be so strong, caring so much about every little thing and being stressed out about stuff like that. Which is why I also think, like, enjoy the level you're at. Whatever level you're at, there's a specific kind of fun at that level that you'll never get again once you improve. But I think maybe one thing that's holding me back is that I am refusing to be nitty-gritty with my game, and I am refusing to put as much thought into it, and I'm trying to do too many general sweeps. So maybe I need to be a little more, maybe I need to think more like a pro and think really about, like, oh, where is the maximally beneficial move, and start thinking that way. Of course, because I, as a DDK, just kind of threw those ideas away, knowing that playing like that is not really the time for me. But hey, at 3Q, maybe it is time for me to start thinking like that. To finish, he says, "I'll try to attend as many tournaments as I can, and hopefully not to do the first round exit, as he laughed. And he says, I will try to contribute as well to promoting the game and improving the overall player level and expanding the player base. I think that's probably the most important thing that I need to do as a pro, is to expand the influence of the game. Amazing. That's the kind of pro we need in the scene, and that echoes the words of Otake Hideo. And I love to see any pro who can kind of champion this game and take that responsibility of not just pushing themselves to the limits, but also bringing the entire Go community up as a whole, especially out here in the wild, wild west. Very, very exciting updates to OGS. They're changing the scoring system. They've changed it to not score based on auto sealing, which is when, like I said earlier, something very difficult for new players to understand when territories are complete and sealed. I guess the previous algorithm would just automatically seal it and try to count up the points that way. But there is a new feature that will mark any openings in territory and highlight the location, call out the coordinates, and say, the highlighted locations need to be sealed before the game can be scored correctly. And then you can cancel and resume the game. Really, really cool feature. I think this is a very much needed feature. I'm excited to see how much it changes the player perception of the game and see if it really does help newer players to understand, oh, this is not a finished game. Another change that they've made is they removed the manual marking of dame. So if you look at the dame points, they used to be marked by these blue squares. But now I think it's just going to be nothing there. I'm not sure exactly the reasoning for it, but I think it cleans it up a little bit, and I think that's good. Another change is that there's a new visual for dead stones. It's a very clear indicator now. Before it used to just be it just became less opaque, and it would just kind of fade away. But now there's, in addition to the opacity change, a big red X that goes straight through the stone, so you know for sure it's marked as dead. It's almost like you're going to put like skull emojis on it or something, but X's will do just fine. And finally, the actually second to last change here is that when you try to mark a live group as dead, it will actually tell you, hey, this is not dead. It'll say this group appears alive, and then you'll have an override option to long press or shift click it to forcibly remove it, which is a very interesting feature. I wonder what use case that will have. Maybe there's some ambiguous situations where the algorithm detecting something as alive is not quite accurate. But one reason why I think this is a good feature is because it removes all that nervousness about cheaters trying to quickly mark a live group as dead and continue that way. It makes it a lot more difficult to do that. Also makes it difficult to do it by accident. I think a lot of times as beginners, people don't even know what alive groups are, and they try to mark something as dead, and they just do that. They score it that way, and that's how they lose the game. So it may be a good instructional feature as well. And then the real last change I don't fully understand, but let me just read it to you. Finally, the last change in the stone removal phase is the way stone strings are marked or unmarked. For removal has changed to remove the string of stones clicked as opposed to recursively marking all stones. So I don't really understand this, but I do notice that sometimes in, at least in the estimator, when I click a certain group of stones, it will actually just cover the entire board. Maybe it has something to do with that. I'm not really quite sure. Maybe it has to be a connected group for it to be marked as dead. But let me continue reading on the elaboration. The reason for this change is to primarily make changes less surprising for beginners, and it's my hope that the automatic stone removal improvements will largely make making large changes largely unnecessary. But let me know how this feels in practice. We want to strike the balance of being quick and convenient to fix any scoring mistakes that might still be present, and protecting beginners from inadvertently marking the entire board as dead and getting the board state into a mess. So If you guys have any direct experience with the new changes in place in OGS scoring, let me know. That's very exciting to see some forward movement in the Go server technology. I'm very thankful to the OGS developers. I think Anoek did this post. It was a very thoughtful and informative post. I'll link it. I'll link the forum post in the description of this episode if you want to check it out. But I'm sure if you've been on OGS, you've been able to see the little announcement for stone scoring changes, and you'll be able to see that there. But if you haven't, I'll have a link. And then the second big change to OGS is OGS TV. So for a while now, you've seen announcements on OGS, little things that pop up that streamers and YouTubers float up to the top when they are live so that you know, hey, there's something going on. It was a great way to find new content creators because most of us Go players were hanging out on OGS, and that's the place where you would want to know about any new streams and things like that. So that has become a full-blown feature called OGS TV, and now there's a little TV icon. I'm sure OGS players have noticed it by now. You click on it, and there is a embedded stream system. Right now, it's only Twitch, I think, and hopefully also YouTube will be there as well. But you can just kind of click that TV icon, and you'll see this list of active streams, and you can watch right in the OGS browser. Of course, you can go to the hosting website as well. It's also available under Watch on the menu bar. OGS TV, really cool to see this as a feature. Maybe it's a stepping stone to OGS radio? Probably not. Well, now it's time for listener mail. Jim George Baker writes, how can I write a Go fictional novel about a non-Asian character becoming the world Go champion and still make it decent? Any advice, sir? Well, I'm not really the person to ask. I'm no writer. I don't really know how to structure and write a good novel, but I will say, from what I know, focus on the emotional aspect, the journey, and the experience of the whole thing. I would say it's not so important for the character to become the world Go champion. That actually might be a very difficult thing to do, to make that a story. Because I think if you really want to do that, you want to look at historical records of how people become the world champion at anything, right? You can look at the life of Magnus Carlsen, you can look at the life of Shin Jin-seo, or any champion like Garry Kasparov, and see how they live their life from a young age all the way up until they reach championship level, and see what you can extract from there. And that would be a good starting point for you to see if this is something you want to do, if this is the direction you want to make. I would say it's not necessary to make this person a Go world champion necessarily, but if that's really the important thing, then I would take a look at that. Of course, you don't have to be super realistic either. I think it's awesome that you're thinking of writing a Go fictional novel. I would love to read it, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. Thanks for writing in. Lewa writes, really loved the fact that a Go podcast exists. This fulfills a desire I didn't know I craved. Well, thanks for your kind words. I'm happy to provide the service for you. And finally, Isaiah writes, I tend to understand the story of the game better when I'm playing against a stronger player. It's almost as if I'm learning from them just by playing against them. I feel like when I play a stronger player, I'm questioning every move and everything that I'm like, everything that I come up with in terms of what I think is the story of the game, where I say, would normally say, that group is gonna die, that group is is doomed, and it's gonna help me create all this territory over here. Maybe that's my typical narration of the story. With a stronger player, if I know they're stronger, I'll probably look at it and be like, I didn't know that group could live. He's playing in a way where the group could live. That means that the group can live, and it's not going to die, and I'm going to lose the whole game. And it makes me question. It's very psychological. But I can kind of see where you're coming from, too, where you just try to align your thoughts with the stronger player. Thanks for writing in, Isaiah. And the question of the week is, why don't you think Go is more popular? What do you think we can do to make Go more popular? I'd love to know if you want to share your thoughts on this question, or if you have a Go story to share. Or you want to ask me a question, you could comment on YouTube or the Reddit post for this episode. Or you can email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointpaduk@gmail.com. If you are a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. And if you're a podcast listener, a review and a rating would also help. A very, very special thank you to Jeffrey H. and John M. for supporting Starpoint. And I was at a Go tournament, and this guy kept on telling me, he just kept on randomly telling me, yo, you have bad Byoyomi. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, yo, you have bad Byoyomi. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, you have really bad BO, homie. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.